Hello, welcome to I Think You Think. Do you like that head bob I did? Today is November 19th, 2013, and you're listening to I Think You Think. I'm Justin, and next to me is James.
Howdy, folks.
And he's wearing pants.
You're welcome.
Actually, I think it would be I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And Sequoia.
Who is not wearing pants, actually.
Sit down.
No matter how you look around, you're not going to be able to see it.
It doesn't matter. And we're your hosts. We carry no credentials worth noting. I Think You Think's podcast focuses on what we, your hosts, think, but also what you think. We believe that the forum of ideas is open to everyone, and everyone should have the opportunity to challenge and be challenged by ideas. We're not here to pass judgment, merely discuss ideas and topics. This podcast, first and foremost, is a conversation between us and hopefully you. Feel free to email us, ithinkyoutthink2012@gmail.com, or like our Facebook page. Also, we are on the Chicago Now blogs. All of the links for everything are, we're also on Twitter. All the links for everything is on our Facebook page, facebook.com/ithink.youthink. And I Think You Think is produced by StolenArts Productions and is recorded live at Fisher International Studios. How's everybody doing?
Doing well.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. This is a live broadcast like we normally do. And then we are not going to be meeting next week.
Correct.
Correct. Because it's...
We're sick of each other.
We actually had to put the weapons away before the show started.
Except for the swords in the back wall, just in case.
Zombies and co-hosts. Whatever comes first. Anyway, but you will have a show because we are going to record a show after this show for next week.
So if the shirt doesn't change, you know why.
You know exactly why. I did forget to bring a shirt, but at least we told them this time.
You did bring a shirt you're wearing.
Oh, nice. Thanks. But we are talking about the declining work ethic this week, and this was a topic that you were interested in.
That's true.
Before we dive into it, though, what is going on in everybody's life right now? Sequoia.
I've actually been watching a lot of documentaries lately. Like, whenever I feel like I don't really have time to read, I try and at least sort of like my downtime use it to watch documentaries and stuff, just keep my brain active. So I'm watching a lot of documentaries, so therefore I'm very riled up about a bunch of social issues this week. So like sitting there doing my makeup and like putting it down going, yeah, screw makeup. It's all part of the patriarchy, you know? So, that's what's been going on in my life recently.
James?
Work, and Need for Speed. Been doing a little reading. Actually, I picked up playing guitar again. I've been playing that, and my fingertips kind of hurt, which means I'm doing it right. So.
The one guitar that I bought many years ago still has the same strings on it.
They're probably not good anymore. If you try to play it, they'll probably break.
Yeah, well, at least if I try to tune the guitar. As long as I don't try to tune it, I'm good.
Yeah, well, that shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, especially because, judging by how I play, it wouldn't be that good anyway. No one would really know.
What's that noise?
I actually have an interview next week for a store manager position at the company that I work for.
Out of state.
Out of state, yes. Quite a ways away, like 13 or 14 hours. So.
How would we ever record this podcast in those kind of situations?
We would just probably have to go back to the way we did it before.
Like a month and a half ago? Okay.
I mean, that's assuming. That's assuming I actually got offered the position. Crossing my fingers, but I'm not expecting crazy things. It would be cool. It would be a good opportunity. But this show will still be here. You know, I think we can still make it work. And so there you go. That's what's going on in my life. Declining work ethic.
Before that, last week when we recorded our podcast, it was day after Veterans Day, and we didn't mention it, and we just want to give a shout-out to all the veterans and active military. We were thinking about you just when we were podcasting. We didn't mention it. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate you. So, declining work ethic. I've been a manager for about 15, 16 years now, and the youth of America are not quite as...
How old he is?
No, it's true. I'm old. I'm probably somewhere near closer to 70 than 1. That's where I am. 70 than 1. So yeah, like the work ethic has just declined, and there's a couple of points that I put in this handy little device. It's called a cellular phone.
He's not just checking his.
It's like, hold on a second, I have to tweet this.
2 minutes. I got to check my Facebook. The first thing that comes to mind as far as when I was thinking about it is parenting. For me, when I have had a great employee in the past, and I do get an opportunity to meet their parents, I'm like, oh yeah. That completely makes sense. That's exactly what you'd expect. They're parents that are involved, that come to, I've managed restaurants for the majority of the time I've been a manager. They will take the time to come in to the place where their children work to just eat there, to frequent that, want to meet the manager, things like that. And that, like, parenting, the proper types of parents generate that work ethic in their children, because there's really nowhere else I can see where they're getting it from right now. But you're also a manager and have been for a while.
Yes.
Have you had the opportunity to meet any of the parents of?
Actually, one of the employees, my company recently in the last year went through a kind of a restructuring of the field, which is where the retail stores are, not at the corporate level. And my position has become basically the person who's in charge of all of the hourly employees, everybody who's not leadership. Is what my position. So I have done significantly more hiring in the last year than I'd ever done in the previous 5.5 years that I've been with the company. So yes, in the last probably 2 months, I've actually hired 3 different employees, and one of them actually 4 now. But the couple that just started, it's really hard to gauge. They just started a week and a half ago, 2 weeks. But the one is his mother she would come into our store a lot, so I had already known her that way. I didn't know that he was her son when he came in and interviewed, so that was at least nice that it didn't color the interview at all. But yeah, I mean, it's the same kind of thing. You can almost see that they instill those types of things into their children. So.
Right, and I mean, not to say that it's easy, because I think there's way more challenges for parents now than even 15 years ago. Like, you're married, you have 2 kids. Is there any possible way, realistically, that one of you could not work?
Well, if I get offered this job, then yes, my wife could actually quit working.
Really?
Yeah, and because my wife doesn't make a lot right now.
Right.
And the difference that I would go up to, but we're not. I mean, we're not. It's not a lot of money, but we're at a level where we're comfortable, and the amount that I would make more is equivalent to the amount that she would stop making.
Right.
And so that we're an exception to the rule in this case. But I'm not saying that the job I'm being offered is like $100,000 a year or something. Nowhere near that. More like half of that. But but we're used to being at that level, and so that would be a difference. Could we exist right now? Possibly, but I wouldn't be able to buy the Xbox One that's coming out this Friday. Those type of things, the things that I really like. Right. But my goal always growing up had always been, I just want to be able to live comfortably, maybe go on a nice vacation every once in a while. So I don't need a huge, extravagant lifestyle. I drive
not like what I have here.
I know this Shangri-La.
Okay, so what about you, Sequoia? I mean, you've never been a manager, but the people that you've worked with that had that strong work ethic, when you've got to meet their families, do you see a regular correlation?
Well, I mean, I don't really actually think, I actually don't really agree that age has anything to do with it. I don't think it's a declining work ethic within the age groups. I think it's on a person-by-person basis, which is kind of what you're saying, too, is that, like, some people in my generation, like, I've worked for you, like, some people in my generation are amazing workers, and some people are not. But at the same time, I've also worked with people that were in generations above me and below me who were both awesome and, dear God, why am I on the shift with this person? So I think it's just on an individual basis more than anything. I think overall, through the generations, the work ethic has declined. But I think it really is more about, like, yes, parenting does have a lot to do with it. And, whether or not they grew up in a working household. My parents were extremely hard workers, and I like to think that's something that got passed on to me, But I know, there are also a lot of people who didn't really have, strong parents, but that doesn't mean either that they have no work ethic at all.
I'm not saying it's a hard, fast, black and white rule by any stretch of the imagination. Because it can't be. There's no,
Yeah, I mean, in my personal case, my parents got divorced when I was younger than driving, because I remember my parents were separated at the point where my dad gave me his old car. And like, my mom had never been the disciplinarian, and so I grew up in a scenario in which I didn't have as much discipline, but I was still always a relatively, I would show up on time and I would work hard, and throughout my entire life, that's just what I've done. I have had jobs though that I didn't give a shit about, and I honestly, I think it has more to do, like you were saying, with personal. There is an aspect I think that parents can instill, but there is a personal aspect to the passion that one can have for their job, which sometimes that can be because of, like, members of management.
Definitely.
What we at my store what we at my company call engagement, how engaged your employees are.
Right.
And sometimes it just has to do with, I've got an employee who, she's engaged, but her work, it's hard to get her to do stuff, especially if it's stuff outside of her comfort zone. It's hard to teach her new things. She doesn't want to. She fights you on it. She intentionally messes things up so that you don't ask her to do it again. Things like that.
The manager and me just got angry.
Yeah, I know, right? You're like, you know that when I tell you to fill the shelf, I mean with everything on the cart, not just until you go through that one box. And that's the kinds of things. But with talking to her, I know that she got her degree from college years ago in something completely different. This is not what she wants to do. She makes $9-10 an hour running a register, and it's awful. It's horrible. And so as somebody who believes in a living wage, it drives me crazy that I've got employees that I have to hire on at $8.25 an hour. I think hiring on at that low is okay, but I think that they should have an opportunity to get up to that living wage within a year or two.
But I mean, that's another part of the problem, because the way companies run right now, as consumers, everybody wants everything to be super cheap and right now.
Right.
At least here in America. The rest of the world's got, from what I understand, is a more realistic view of how things actually work. But we want everything to be as cheap as possible, as convenient as possible, as quick as possible, all the time. So on the consumer side, we want that. So what the businesses do is they have to have less people working, doing more work. So they're asking for more, more and more and more and more and more out of employees, from management all the way down to the person who just got hired on at age 25, which makes it much more difficult to become enamored in that job as a young kid. You're talking 15, 16, 17-year-old kids. It's kind of the age group I'm talking about. And you were right, Sequoia, what you said. I mean, it covers the gambit. You never know. But in the industry you work in, if you come across someone who's my age and still serving, they're probably an underachiever. Honestly, I mean, if you're 40 years old, unless you've gone back to it because if you've been serving that entire time, you're really not reaching for the stars. I mean, because you can't get insurance. You could be, if you're serving for 10 years, it's not like you've gotten all these raises.
Well, now, with the exchanges in Obamacare, insurance isn't tied to work as much, and so you can get insurance, provided that you can get onto the goddamn website that's failing all the fucking time.
Well, and actually, I will say, also,
I couldn't tell.
The company that I work for actually has really amazing insurance for part-time workers, so that's actually not really an issue within the company that I work for.
Right.
But not to break away from what you were saying, but I kind of wanted to go back to something you were saying about, the field that you're in. I will say that, looking at myself completely honestly, retail me doesn't even hold a candle to server me. Retail me was an awful employee. Looking back on it now, I know that I was not that I was, bottom of the barrel, dear God, we need to fire her, but I was not nearly the same employee I am now. And it's because I had absolutely no passion for retail. I could never work for you.
You personally.
Yeah.
You personally, Justin.
Like,
you're a terrible
like, we could not be friends anymore if I, like, worked for you.
You actually call us off the podcast.
Yeah.
Until she gets those shelves straightened out.
But I think that, I think there is a certain thing with, and this is something I will say, I think about people in my generation, is I think a lot of them don't realize that correlation. They don't realize, like, if you're really unhappy in a job and you feel like you're not doing a good job, you should look for work in another field. It's just sort of like, I hate work.
Yeah.
And I think it's not, nobody's encouraged to really go, well, if you're not happy, then look for another job, because we kind of, I think, sometimes with my generation, I kind of feel like, well, it's a crappy job. It's just a job, without really thinking about how a job affects our overall happiness.
Right.
I have, a certain amount of passion for being a server, and I really, I actually really do enjoy it, and I think that's what makes me a better employee. Retail, I have no...
Well, to spin off that a little bit, short of what you learned from your parents, where in your life has, like, work ethic ever been glorified?
Never.
Never.
Yeah.
Like, every TV show you see, like, is, people work in a hospital and they live in this awesome apartment, I mean, very rarely is it ever referenced anywhere in popular culture,
I was gonna, one of the shows that I've said to my wife before that I wish I could talk to my employees that way, and it's the difference between people who have a job and people who have a career, is like, on like cop dramas.
Okay.
The way like a superior officer or like a captain or whatever would talk to his hers detectives or whatever that are under them. Sometimes they can be like, you need to get
your problem.
Yeah, you need to get this together.
Or
yeah,
else.
Yeah, exactly. And I can't talk to employees like that. Like HR would be in, and I wouldn't talk.
Like the voice in your head just be filtered through your mouth.
Yeah.
You can say all those things. You just got to say it right, and it's different for every person. But that's a whole other thing. That's a whole different thing.
Specifically, those words like that, you can't say. I mean, you could, and you would probably get away with it for a long time, but you would have very disgruntled, unengaged employees.
Right.
They might get their job done, and you might look good to your boss, but you're not helping them as people.
But that's an entire different tangent. Yeah. But realistically, like, getting back to the point, where in our society do we actually glorify work ethic? Nowhere.
Yeah.
We don't anymore. Like, except within an individual household. So what I found is more and more throughout the years, because, I mean, there's consistently throughout my career that, like, high school age has been one age that I've always managed. There have always been other people, like the older age groups, but there's always been a consistency of at least a few of those in every place I've ever managed. And it's less and less, and I think that is partly to blame. So I would have to try to instill that in them myself. When you get to someone who's like 30, 40 years old, they have it or they don't. You can gain their loyalty, which is a whole different thing. For them to have that work ethic naturally, it's either they have it or they don't. But it's those employees with the first job. And if there's any of you out there, any young people, I got to tell you, everything that I've ever gotten has been because of my work ethic, and I'm guessing that these two would say exactly the same. You go in, you work hard, make sure you're working for a good company, and in the long run, it is always going to pay off for you. Even if everyone else around you isn't doing it, you will always be better than the rest. You will always get promoted sooner. You'll get the raises sooner. You get the bigger raise than the person next to you. Via this work ethic. So it should be glorified. Yeah. Because that's exactly what they expect to get to.
Right.
There was like a survey done about like people talking about their own generation, and the generation that's kind of, like high school to maybe your age, somewhere in there, Generation Next, whatever they call it. I don't know who names this.
Generations. I think they called it Z.
Generation Me.
The new birthers. I've heard that one. The new birthers.
Yeah.
But whatever they call it, it's irrelevant. Like every generation before, at least 10% of people, when they were asked how they identified their own generation, referenced work ethic. Mm-hmm. Almost none in this generation. And that's a big, big sign of the fact that they don't even reference it. They reference it by their clothes and their technology, and they think they're smarter than other people.
Well, I mean, think about, where, like, when you look at, what my generation is being, we'll say my generation. probably a little bit on the older side of the generation that's coming up now. But, you know, if you look at it, a lot of what we grew up with was American Idol. It was the lottery. You know, it's this sort of lottery, like, you know, if you want to succeed, then you're going to need to get a big break. That was sort of what was shown in the media. Right. You know what I mean? It was like, you know, you might have a day job, but you're waiting for your big break. That is what sort of the idea of working for a paycheck, that working your way up through a company, that is the path to success. I don't think I ever heard from anybody other than my parents.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, even this podcast, all of the stuff that I do for this and StolenArts, and then what you guys help me with, I think you think, we all have our 40-hour work jobs. You go to school. I mean, this is something we do on the side. You know, would it be amazing if somebody showed up and was like, I want to pay each one of you guys $60,000 a year to make a podcast, and here's all the equipment, and we're going to do it?
Even if that was a guarantee for 10 years, I would still give like probably a month notice to my other job.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't walk out the door.
Yeah. And I don't think any of us would.
Yeah.
You know, because again, that's part of the work ethic.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, are we counting on something like that? No.
No.
Would it be amazing to be able to have that opportunity to do something that we enjoy and get paid for it? Of course it would. Is there a likelihood, or any of us banking on that? Not even a little bit. If it happened, I'd be like, pinch me, and then I'll pinch you, and we'll see it. You know, like, what's going on? Like, is this real?
I did want to say about what you were talking about with, you know, just work hard. Don't worry about what the people next to you, whether or not they're doing their job. Don't. As a manager, the last thing I want to hear from an employee, especially a hardworking employee, is for them to come running to me about an employee who's not working hard enough. If they're not working hard enough, I know. I've known. I'm doing things to either change that behavior or to get rid of them so that they're not here anymore, so that I can hire somebody else in who is going to do the job.
But your scenario is a smaller one than some management situations. Because I've run a larger square footage kind of thing, so I don't get to see my employees all the time. Sometimes that's helpful, but I mean, this is kind of off topic, but it depends on how you deliver it. You know, if you come up and be like, you know, you come up to me and be like, Sequoia's not doing her job again, like, I don't feel good about that. This is you complaining. Right. This isn't you being constructive.
Right.
If after a shift you're like, you know, I just wanted you to know that, like, whenever you're not around, Sequoia really kind of doesn't do what she wants, you know, what she's supposed to be doing.
Right.
You know, I just wanted you to know, like, I don't want to be a tattletale or whatever, but I thought you should know that she's really not doing what she's doing. But don't worry, I got it done. And don't worry, Sequoia, you're doing fine.
I wasn't really too concerned, but...
But, you know, it's all a matter of delivery. And in any work situation, it's all a matter of delivery. You know, and that's something we can maybe go over at some point in time in the podcast in the future, like how to address things in a professional scenario. Because there's a million different ways to phrase something, only a handful of which will actually get you responsive results. But again, it's another thing. Now, one more point I have on this whole topic is when I first started working, I worked for media. Like, I would get paid, and literally it'd be like we'd go to the bookstore, we'd go to the CD store, we'd go to the bookstore, we'd go to the CD store. Like, every time we got paid. That's what me and my friends did. But now, you know, a lot of kids know just where to get that stuff for free. If they own a Kindle, they can get the books for free. Own an iPod, you get you can get you know, movies and music for free. You know, obviously not everything, but if it's popular enough that the average kid wants it, they can probably find it if they're savvy enough to look for it. So taking that out of the equation, now what's the money for? Their cell phone?
Xbox One.
Which, if their parents aren't making them pay for it.
Right. If their parents aren't making them pay for it, which they should be, because that's part of responsibility too. I think it starts young. Mm-hmm. I think, you know, chores for a decent wage for the kid. You know, like that allowance should like correlate to some degree.
Right.
You know, so it's reasonable. They have some spending money, and they know, and they should never get that money if they don't do the job and do it well.
Right.
And if they do it extra well, like bonus, like it should really emulate kind of a work scenario to really instill that, you know, work for reward situation. But like, what do the kids work for now, especially if their parents cover their phone?
Which I would say most of them do, because they would rather that they have a phone and use it to call them.
Yeah.
Then most parents don't usually use cell phones as much anymore because they want the kid to be connected to them.
Right.
You know.
Because it's that kind of world. But okay, take cell phone out of it. Maybe they pay for their car insurance. Maybe not. I don't know. Like, what are they spending it on? Like, I wanted that new book. I wanted that new CD. I wanted CD, like, or tapes, if you go back far enough. You know, like, I wanted it, like, or I wanted something that I didn't even know I wanted yet. Like, I wanted to go to the CD store and just find something. You know, I wanted to go to the bookstore and just find something. And that's where a lot of my money went when before I had real bills and real responsibility, and that's what I would go to work for.
Well, my first car, I did not have to buy. My father gave it to me, as I had said, and I didn't pay for insurance on one of my cars probably for quite a while. I mean, it was covered. I think it was under my grandmother's name, so she had the insurance on it. But I'm trying to think, like, what did I use my paychecks on from, like, my first job? I mean, once I got into college, most of my pay went to pay for things for college, books and things and food, you know, normal sort of everyday sort of things. But earlier, like, I started working when I was like 15 and a half, when I actually started my first job, which didn't last very long because it was awful. But so basically, since 16, I've been working I've been working, and I'm trying to think of what I spent my money on originally.
I spent a lot of money on going out for food because I live in a really small town. Yeah. And like going places was a big deal. Yeah. And actually having money to go places was.
And I think it still is today for teenagers that still live with their parents because. It's a way to be social and be outside and not be under the watchful eye of whoever's parents. You know, right. Whether they're overbearing or not, it makes no difference. You know, it's like it's the beginning of freedom. You know, like they have a car, their friend has a car. Go out to eat, go see the movies.
Go see movies. Yeah.
And I think that's what it is. It's all like that social interaction, and you know, alcohol and/or drugs, depending on the child. Yeah. You know.
You know, I will say it's really funny. I actually I was not made to do chores growing up at all. Like, it was not something that was really I had to do. But I will say that my first job that I ever had, even though I worked in an entirely different department, I did work for the same company as my dad in the same, like, vicinity. Oh. So I think that probably had a lot to do with it, because it was, like, first, like I said, my parents are still extremely hard workers, probably some of the hardest workers I've ever met in my entire life. And so going to work for a company that my dad worked for, I felt like I had a standard that I needed to live up to. Because if I came in and it was like, you know, Jim's daughter's a piece of crap, that would reflect poorly upon him, and I didn't want to do that to my dad, you know, because we had a good relationship. So that.
I think just that alone, just having a good relationship with your parents, says a lot. I mean, it's not a cut and dry black and white situation, but that like lends to how you were raised, which can help build character early. Yeah. And that character is what can carry you through and push you through and be successful in life, whether it's workplace or social situations or whatever. You know, it all kind of melds together.
Yeah, and I think it's really what my parents, I think, were able to do was sort of master the friend-parent balance, where my parents are not my friends. Like, I love my parents and I can talk to them about anything, they're my best friends, but they are my parents, and that line was never blurry for me. Yeah. It was never like, my mom's my best friend, Mom, my mom never tried to be young like me, and my dad, you know, they were my parents, you know, and that line never became blurred. And I think that is probably where a lot of it comes from with the younger generation, is that sort of like, I think parents really want to be friends, but they're not really instilling lessons at that point, and they're not, they care more about being friends than being parents.
I think there's a certain, and I couldn't give a percentage, maybe it's 5%, maybe it's 50%, maybe it's higher, that don't really want to take the time to parent anymore. You know? It's hard. Kids got the internet, kids got TV. He's got Netflix and cable and the internet. She has Netflix, cable, and the internet. Like, let them sit in their room. You know? Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's definitely not every parent. There's no way. It's definitely not. But that kind of disconnect from not wanting to be a parent, it's easier to be a friend then. You know? It's like a lot of bad managers I've worked with. You know, they just want to be buddy-buddy, and it's fine. Like, I feel like I develop a good relationship with my employees. But there comes a point where I am still your boss. Right. You know? As long as we're both working well together, it's all going to be butterflies and rainbows, and this is going to be fantastic. We're going to work together, and it's going to be awesome. but there's a point, you know, where that is not the place anymore. Like if somebody's going to try to take advantage of that or not work hard enough, then it changes. And in parenting, it needs to be kind of the same. You need to have a good relationship, and it needs to be open.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not willing to do the hard work at the time that it comes, and parents, and I mean, I see it just in guests that have been in restaurants I've worked at, and like how the children interact. And I mean, as a server, I'm sure you see it as well.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure in your line of business, you see it as well. Like sometimes you go up to a table at a restaurant, like when you work there, and the children are like super polite. And they say please and they say thank you, and they're very like interactive, and they're obviously comfortable socially. And other times, like the kid will just be rude to the parents, hit, scream, you know. And it's not cut and dry. It's not like if you do this, this, and this, you get this child, or you do this, this, and this, you get that child. But sometimes it's kind of apparent. You know, I've seen children running around a restaurant while 3 fully grown adults are just on their phones at the table, not even paying attention. That's someone who's not parenting. They gave up a long time ago.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
And you know, it's not black and white parenting, because every child is different. Every human being is different.
Right.
But the amount of effort is going to give you results even in the worst case scenario. You know, it's.
Yeah.
So, you know, something else that I've noticed is hard to do, requires a lot of work. Things that there could be small items. And, you know, just in case you were wondering.
Justin handled a segue. That was awesome.
We are very proud.
StravaBacks.com. You can get jewelry from the young lady that made all of our graphics. She makes the jewelry as well. Beautiful, really nice stuff. My wife has bought some. She's got at least several sets of their earrings. But yes, check it out. Take a look at their website. See if there's something that you like. They always have new stuff. They also have a Facebook page. I don't know what it is offhand. However, the I Think You Think Facebook page is friends with them as much as a Facebook page can be friends with another Facebook page. But they are friends, so there you go. And that's it. So we are going to come back and go into James is gone.
He disappeared.
It's okay, James. It's okay.
Where are you touching him?
No, he shrunk.
Oh, is that what happened?
Justin?
Sure. Why not? Why not? There you go.
This is apparently turning into an I drink, you drink.
Not even close.
We are doing the transition for those of you, if this is your first podcast, where we talk about our articles. So James has one of his, countdown articles. I'm going to take up the entire second half of the show. So Sequoia, we're going to shoot through ours real quick while he's over there making drinks.
Okay.
I've got one that I want to hit on because it's going to take no time whatsoever, and then you can go ahead. But my friend and longtime listener Yazzie over in Norway, she sent me a picture.
Hey, Yazzie.
Yeah, she listens just about to every show. I know. It gets excited when we say her name. Anyway, she sent me a picture on Facebook. It's one of those it doesn't matter. It's a picture with text on it. But it says Norwegians pay half tax in November, so everyone has more money for Christmas. Now, I don't know if that means like they're half when they do their taxes thing, or if it's like a half sales tax. Kind of like Illinois a couple of years ago got rid of sales tax on back-to-school items for certain days. Mm-hmm. Not this most recent year, but I think last year or the year before. They dropped the sales tax.
There was a no tax day, I think. I know one of the major department stores did that too recently for back-to-school stuff. I don't know if they just carried it over from years before when it was sort of and they're sort of using it as a sale thing.
Yeah.
But I know that one of the department stores did that this last year too.
Yeah, and I mean, believe it or not, it's a lot that you can save. Mm-hmm. I mean, especially when you're spending $100, $150 on back to school stuff. That's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of paste to eat.
I had to think about what you just said first.
That delay was awesome. It was fantastic.
So, like, you waiting to see how we'd react, too.
It explains so much.
And a great pace.
So that was one of the things I wanted to bring up. So there you go.
I don't know if did you guys hear about the I know there's been a lot of these this year, but a server in New Jersey served a table and they racked up almost $100 bill. And when she went to go collect it, it was written on there, "I'm sorry, but I cannot tip you because I don't agree with your lifestyle and how you live your life." It said in the original one that I read, because she has very short hair, that when she first walked up, they said, "Oh my God, we thought you were going to be a boy." And they were just sort of very rude to her. And it was all about the fact that they don't approve of the fact that they, perceived her to be homosexual. So they would not tip her because they said they couldn't contribute to her lifestyle.
Except for the fact that by being there, you're contributing because you're going to get paid anyway.
Well, actually, and this is an important point for anybody who has ever stiffed a server, in most restaurants, the servers actually tip out other people in the restaurant. So when you stiff a server on the check, they actually pay out of pocket to serve you. So that is something that I don't think a lot of people realize.
And you're pretty much a douchebag.
Yes. We remember you.
Doesn't matter if they remember you. You remember yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that being said, and there have been a lot of these this year that I've noticed. There was a racial.
There's a lot of these being brought up.
Yes,
this has been going on forever.
Yes, but now with social media, it's being talked about more. But I wanted to bring up this one in particular because the news article that I have here, the woman who was stiffed on the tip has been getting lots of donations from people all around the world. People saying tipping her in the stead or just sending her donations saying that we're sorry this happened to you. And she is actually taking a portion of what she has been receiving and she is donating it to Wounded Warrior Fund because she is a former Marine. I don't know if you guys know what Wounded Warriors are.
Yeah.
It's awesome. And I think it's really cool of her that, she is taking it that direction. And I just thought it was really cool. So, not that she'll ever watch it, but,
Two questions.
Okay.
Number one, is she actually gay?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. I think they probably would have mentioned it if she wasn't, because it would have been even
more.
More. I mean, either way, it's ridiculous because the presumption, whatever, and even if whether she was or not, it's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how much she's giving? Because obviously the one tip from the one table should be, whatever, $5, $10, $15, $20.
Yeah.
It didn't say exactly how much she was giving.
It should be pretty much all of it if she's getting a lot of money coming in.
Well, I know that
one table.
From this article from yesterday, she had gotten $2,000 so far. So it hasn't been
not like hundreds of thousands of dollars, right?
But still, that's a ridiculous amount of money over one table.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I hope she's using the money correctly.
Yes. But
going and tipping other waitresses.
I'm sure she does. Mm-hmm. Anyone who's in the service industry. If you get stiffed by someone in the service industry, you are bad at your job. You are really, really bad at your job. It's a true story. I don't think people know. When they get an average tip from me, they sucked. Sucked.
Yeah, that's what
I always feel like I should leave a note, but I don't want to be rude about it.
You might end up on a.
Yeah, but when they look at it and see but he still tipped you 20%. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I got horrible service at a breakfast restaurant. Someone who was just obviously unhappy, horribly unhappy. Couldn't even crack a smile. Robot would have been more personable than this person was, and I still tipped her 20%.
Yeah.
If she would have been personable, she would have gotten 50%. Because it's breakfast, it's a small bill, it's $12.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? To throw $6 on there, not a big deal. You know what I mean? But I said she got $3.
Yeah. Sometimes if I have a table that I feel like they're just not feeling me, it's really not going as well as I want it to, and they leave me really good tip, I'm kind of I bet they're servers. When I'm expecting an angry tip, and I'm I bet they're servers. I bet that is their angry tip.
But it's hard to read people in that scenario. Sometimes you don't know, they're just having a rough day, and you're not clicking with them, but they're not clicking with anybody right now.
Yeah.
And, you still gave quality service.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other thing.
I could go on about that forever. All right. Did you have another article?
I have one other one, and it's short. And then I don't know if you have anything else, and we'll let you take over the rest of the podcast with your countdown.
We only have 18 minutes. How am I
So this is an article I'd seen a couple of weeks ago, and I filed it away, and I figured this goes well because the other one was about Norway. Mm-hmm. Sweden, your future home, because you love it so much.
I do.
It's a good country.
Common Sweden.
Yep.
It's not a threat, it's a promise.
Sweden is closing their prisons because they're running out of inmates to put into their prisons. Now, at first, you're like, oh my God, like what in the hell are they doing? That's amazing. Like they have people not committing crimes, so that it's not really what's going on. What it is they've changed a lot of their punishments. Mm-hmm. Things that we send people to jail for, minor drug offenses, things like that, that's part of the war on drugs, they don't do. Mm-hmm. They do people who are either not likely to commit again.
Is that a Swedish prison?
That is a Swedish prison.
My Lord.
It's better than hotels most of the time. Yes.
That is a bigger place than you live, Sequoia.
Look at this.
I like my teen apartment.
You know what? Hang on 1 second. I'm going to do this so you guys can see this.
Just wait.
Anybody want to take a trip?
Like,
and they're the only
I want to go there and be like, what crimes can I still go to jail for?
All right, so here we go. This is their cell. Okay.
One person.
All right, so this is their cell.
Actually, Tom, if you're watching, that is bigger than your apartment.
This is actually way bigger than my apartment.
This is their common room. They've got weight rooms. They've got this is like a kitchen or a library or something. But they've got. I mean, this is. I'm going to be biased here, but this is what happens when you have a truly secular society making laws that are reasonable and understanding, and not living in a borderline theocracy like we do in the United States. But yeah, whatever. Anyway, so they're shutting down these prisons, 2 or 3 prisons that they actually have to close because they don't have enough inmates to be in them, and it's because they put people more on probation. If they're not violent, if their crime did not have victimless crimes, they're less, or people who are less likely to offend again. They're going to put them onto probation. They're going to give them mandatory counseling. They're going to do things like that, putting them back out into society and rehabilitating them instead of locking them away, which is the United States way of doing things.
Yeah.
Which, and not to get off topic, and this is a completely another topic to ever go into, with the commercialization of prisons that's coming down, where companies are owning prisons now, it's only going to get worse.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have a certain amount of inmates that they have to have, that the state has to send them, and so people are going to start getting locked away for stupid things because they have to send X amount of people to the prison, or they're not fulfilling their contracts.
And it's going to be a profit margin thing.
Yep.
I mean,
it's basically slave labor because they use them to make things.
Yes.
And they don't really pay them. I mean, the amount that you would get in some sort of a commissary is useless. I mean, you're not going to be able to do anything with it. And we're talking less than what servers make at an hourly rate to work in jobs where people are normally getting paid $20, $25, $30 an hour. I mean, that's the kind of society we live in.
Well, I will say, I don't know if you ever read the book Catch Me If You Can by Frank Abagnale.
I've seen the movie.
Okay, first of all, the movie doesn't...
And it was a long time ago.
But movies are always better than the books.
Especially because it had Leonardo DiCaprio in it. So.
Totally kidding.
The book is actually, ignore everything they're saying. The book is actually one of my favorite books that I've ever read. I have read the book easily 10 times, if not more. That
is almost as much as she's read Twilight. And podcast.
Just ignore everything they're saying as I'm going to continue on. Anyway, it's one of my favorite books of all time. And he actually, because, he did end up going to jail for all the crimes that he committed. And he went to a French prison first. I think he actually only went for 6 months, but those are awful conditions. They put him in a room, gave him a bucket, and that was it for 6 months, basically. They fed him, maybe once a day. That, no windows, no light, nothing. That is what he was in. And then he went from there to Sweden. And, in the book, he's just, expecting to be, he's expecting another...
It's going to be awful, and now it's going to be colder.
And then he walks into, this, glorious hotel with, college education classes, and he's like, what is going on? I don't even understand right now.
Yeah.
And he talks a lot about like what it was like being, imprisoned there, and how he really, the rehabilitation and just how amazing it was.
Yeah.
Because they actually like try to like, be like, we're gonna provide you with all the things that you need to become a functional member of society.
Yeah. And on the possibility that we might get into a discussion about prisons and what is a better way to do things, we're just going to move on.
Okay.
Did you have another topic?
I have the one last one about the video that I had you guys watch before we started about the.
It's a short one. It's funny.
It is. It'll be really quick. If you have time, you should find that you've used the Google. There is a video out there of
inside your internet.
Yes, white supremacist name. I believe his name is Craig Cobb, and he actually wants to start a community where only white people can live. Like he is like extreme neo-Nazi white supremacist, and he went on to a talk show and underwent DNA testing in order to prove his purity, and it turned out that he was 14% sub-Saharan African, and the video is fantastic. The woman sitting next to him, who was just like cracking up the whole time, was like the best thing. So if you have time, go watch it, because I loved it, and I hope you guys loved it, because I was like...
And at the end, he recants and is now actually... No, of course
he actually got arrested last week, I believe.
Oh,
so...
No, obviously he doesn't recant.
Still.
Yes, because science is evil, and it was a conspiracy.
Definitely.
I believe he called it statistical noise.
Yeah, statistical noise.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
No, that's your ancestors, buddy. And if you're going to be an idiot white supremacist and go on TV to get a DNA test, hey, why don't you get one of those ahead of time? That way you at least know where you're going.
Yeah. Or maybe
they're available.
Say, never mind.
I guess that shows you got conviction, but it's
I think that'd be interesting. I think it'd be interesting for all three of us to do. Should see how much that is. It'd be an interesting podcast.
Well, they're about $130-ish for the
What if we get a group rate?
The thing. Well, we sell them at Walgreens. That's why I was.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's paternity tests. And
you get a discount.
I get a discount on the product, but that's only like $20 or $30, but you have to pay the lab fee.
Yeah.
Which is the $150-ish.
I still think it would be really cool, though.
Oh, Ancestry.com does stuff where they send you the packet and you send in the DNA. I mean, it's the same thing, like $200-300, and they give you a complete profile and tell you who you're related to. And
that'd be awesome.
Because when you have thousands of people doing it, now you're developing a network of DNA of people.
It'd be interesting to see, like we all know kind of what we are.
Yeah.
As far as like where our most recent ancestors are from.
Yeah, but beyond that.
I'm half Swedish, but does that mean I like half of that half is like 25% of that Finnish? And all the kind of things you could learn. So I think it'd be interesting.
We'll look into it for next year.
We're gonna wait that long? A month and a half? Okay, so social political this week. Maybe I'm stretching the boundaries here, but I thought this was interesting. 20 dramatic predictions for 2030, which is roughly like 10 years away. 17 years away. 16 actually, pretty much at this stage.
I round
roughly
directionally.
So some of these are very interesting, and some of them are kind of scary. They predict
I don't want anything scary.
75% of universities around the world will have gone out of business in 16 years.
Does it say why?
Because of everything's going to online.
Oh, okay.
A lot of these colleges, and like they have the Khan Academy, if you've looked it up, where you can kind of, and MIT's got some stuff going on in other colleges, where you can like study their courses as much as you want. Stuff they have online, and you only have to pay if you want to take the test.
Okay.
And then if you take the test, you can get certification from the test. And there's a lot of different aspects. There's no standardized format for this yet because it's very new. But they're anticipating that these colleges and learning is going to go online, which also makes it international immediately.
Yeah.
Like anyone in any country who has internet access would be able to study whatever's available out there. Obviously there are some things that will never be able to get to that point. You can't learn how to run like an arc welder via the internet. At least not fully.
You could try, but it would probably not be great.
Yeah, for anthropology, definitely.
Yeah, it could be completely, except for like when I get into like my later stuff, lab work. But that would be the universities that would stay open. Would be like the grad schools.
But even then, a lot of that stuff, like I don't know what kind of lab work you really do, what you would really do, but a lot of that stuff could still be like online timed lectures. That are specific times. and things like that, where it can be an interactive online experience.
Yeah.
Unless you literally need to handle something, you know.
Yeah.
It could almost all be online.
And a lot of, like, Elgin Community College does for some of their physiology courses and things. You can take a course that is partially online, and then you show up for lab. Mm-hmm. So you do all of your normal schoolwork, and then you show up one day a week for the lab.
So, second part, 10% of the largest corporations in the world will be considered virtual corporations. So you could potentially move to another state. I could live here. We could actually work for the same company, technically in the same office, because we only worked from home doing our jobs.
Right.
Because the internet has become such like a gateway to everything that companies would no longer, like they might have like one actual office, or they might own warehouses and stuff like that, but not have like a centralized office. You know. So I mean, 10% isn't a huge number, but still, 90% of taxi companies would go out of business. They're anticipating. They already, some cities have offered license for like basically robot cars.
Okay.
Like automated cars that have full GPS. You know, the technology isn't all the way there yet.
It's really close. Yeah,
I mean they're not like producing these on a line somewhere right now, where you know you can go to Chicago and the next cab that picks you up is going to have nobody in it. Yeah,
I mean there's a lot of car companies that have already been approved by the government to produce
fully automated vehicles.
Fully automated vehicles. Nissan was the last one I think that I had heard that they had gotten I don't know if they call it a patent or what do they call it, but
permit.
A permit, I guess. I don't know, but they're working on one, and Google obviously has had one that they use.
But I mean, 16 years for 90% of cab companies to be out of business. And I don't know if that's 90% of cabbies, or if it's just something that's going to kill the smaller ones, and just the bigger ones will be there, but they'll have a little more people than they would. Because there's some people that are still going to want, like, because if I was super drunk and I was getting a taxi home, I would rather have a person up there that could understand me, as opposed to having, like, you know, trying to punch in my effing address. You know, I don't know.
Probably the 10% of taxi companies that would be left would probably be in rural areas or suburban areas, as opposed, like, urban, forget about it.
Oh,
there will
Chicago.
Be no
like getting picked up from the airport to get dropped off in downtown Chicago. Yeah.
It'd probably be more like rural communities with like that one taxi.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah,
that can't be true, because Bruce Willis played a character in The Fifth Element where he was a taxi driver in those flying cars.
Well, we all know that that's going to be accurate.
It better.
And Bruce Willis will still be around. Weird. Okay, so the this next one kind of plays off the last one. Automated delivery vans with delivery robots enable 2-hour delivery in urban areas. And are disrupting the concept of retail stores. So basically what they talk about is, like, if you order something off Amazon, Target would probably be a better example, because they're around a Walmart or whatever's around in 16 years of that ilk. Like, if you order something online, you know, one of those automated vehicles would basically deliver it to your house within 2 hours. Mm-hmm. You know, which is kind of amazing.
At that point, you could be ordering like perishable items.
It's true.
You know,
like Grey Goose.
Yes.
Or bananas. I think that's probably what she's doing. So that would be kind of neat. But I mean, that's like in 16 years, though. I mean, that feels like a big jump for 16 years from now. But I mean, I guess if we look back at the most popular technology 16 years ago, it probably seemed like a relevant.
Yeah. Thing. Well, I mean, remember that the iPhone only came out 7 years ago. I mean,
yeah. Could we get a? I'm going to look up after the podcast and see, like, what the most popular cell phone was in, 1997. Okay, so next one, 50% of supermarkets have gone out of business. Now, that makes sense because, I mean, we're a little far afield here, kind of, but there's still, like, within a 5-minute drive, there's at least 3 supermarkets that I can think of off the top of my head. The last place I lived, when I lived in Schaumburg, like, if you're talking within 15 minutes, I couldn't even tell you how many, like, different grocery stores I could get to, you know? So, I mean, if you add in the robot delivery, things like Peapod, and I mean, because there's a lot of stuff that you order that you get at a grocery store that feels like you need to get at a grocery store, but dry goods, toiletries, anything like that, you can get all that stuff delivered.
Yeah.
You know, like from Walmart or some of the other retailers that do that kind of stuff. And if you get a certain amount, you get free delivery.
Well, and there's gonna be a certain amount of like, the stores that cater to, it's, very, very cheap food. Those are gonna stick around for a while. And the ones that are sort of like the specialty goods, like your Whole Foods and like stuff like that, where it's like, things you go for very specialty items, those will hang around for a while, but all the stuff in the middle is gonna disappear.
Yeah.
That's they're not gonna serve a purpose anymore.
Yeah, I mean, or they'll be again in like more rural areas.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, bye-bye. So the next one, shopping in real life is for experiences and services, and shopping for goods and necessities is all